Yes, I'll stand like everybody else is standing. Yes, I will be an advocate. I would voice and make it known that the overcrowding is intolerable. It is not acceptable for various reasons. One is safety. We need to begin putting our children's safety first. Safety is always a priority when we're looking at our children in our schools. Chesterfield County is a growing county. It is going to continue to grow. As you drive down Whole Street, traveling out west, you see all the new development that wasn't here last year. Our schools are what is one of the areas that make our county attractive to a lot of people in the surrounding counties and other parts of the districts. So what we have to begin to do is look at some methods of how we're going to address this problem, because they're going to increase before they actually decrease. One of the ways that we're going to have to do this is look at, number one, and I've always said this, is are our children that are living in our communities attending schools? And I do realize there are a lot of children that are being bused, but they are being bused from alarming distances. We need to look at establishing programs within each district, similar programs, so that way our children can attend their community schools, schools in their neighborhood. We have children that are being bused from neighborhoods as far away as the Highlands and further beyond beyond that area. So we really need to look at what are our demographics in our school. Where are our children, the distance that they are traveling, and we may have to begin dispersing our children to other schools for a short period of time. I know it's going to be uncomfortable, but just to get things to where they are stabilized and our teacher-student ratio is in compliance. Is my time up? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. To continue along this line, this is a question for the Board of Supervisors. All we have seemed to hear is that there's no money for new schools, capital improvements, or anything else of value to young families in this area. Why do you think the county cut proffers and restrict the remaining funds to transportation?
When I read this question, why do you think the county cut proffers? I have a personal opinion on that, but when you're trying to develop a working relationship, like I recognize the importance of proffers and what that could have done, but we have a current Board of Supervisors in which that occurred, so the proper persons to respond to that question would be them. What I would suggest, if I'm elected in office, to revisit that issue. But definitely I wouldn't give out, because I'm sure we've all heard, and have our speculations, but definitely wouldn't just in front of you all say, something that one of the board members currently did based on what I think. Because in developing a working relationship, if I'm elected, whether I'm Democrat or Republican, whoever are the remaining board of supervisors are, I have to work with them. And so the proffers, they have been cut, yes, that is unfortunate, but we just have to look at other means and other ways to make up for that. But obviously, with the opportunity to revisit that, once again, data-driven. Look at the data, look at the numbers, and see what we can do to implement it.
The reason, as explained as to why the current Board of Supervisors changed the profit program had to do with legislation that was introduced in 2016 to the General Assembly that restricted the use of proffers and made it more difficult to use proffers for other things. Off-site proffers are examples, schools, fire departments. On-site proffers are the roads within the community. So the 2016 legislation changed that. So what the county did, again, they did it, not me, they decided to cut it to $9,400. Why? Because matching transportation dollars from the state, the max you can get is $9,400. So when every proffer when a house in Chesterfield County that has a proffer on it gets its certificate of occupancy, when people get ready to move in, that's $9,400 that comes to the county, and they apply to the state for another $9,400 for transportation dollars, which resulted in last year in Chesterfield County getting the second highest amount in transportation dollars, matching funds from the state than any other jurisdiction in Commonwealth Virginia. Now, that being said, I don't like proffers in some respects because they actually raise the cost of your house. Does anybody think that when they put a $10,000 proffer on your house, that the developer's taking it and saying, I'm just gonna absorb that into the cost? No, they pass it on to your house. My house has gone up $45,000 in the last 2 years because of bigger houses being built next to me that have proffers on them. So it raises everybody's tax rate. I certainly think that we should always look at whatever we're doing to the public, and if we have to change it because things change, yes. So revisiting the proffer policy, of course, we should look at for any part of our budget because of what our priorities are. The proffers, like I said, they have at least helped us get transportation dollars. So again, I didn't do that, the current board did, and I would be willing to revisit that as well. Thank you.
I should have mentioned that the last question was a short one. We're going to pay for that because it's a little bit longer. For most of us in the room, there's no avoiding the reality that our kids will spend at least 1 year of their elementary education in trailers outside of the actual school. Everyone has been quick to blame someone else in the story of how we got here. Now that the entire school board is leaving, there seems to be no accountability. How does that change? Won't it be easy for an entirely new board to spend their first term simply blaming the people that are no longer around? What is going to be different with you, and how will you ask us to keep you accountable?
Nobody has time to be engaging in finger pointing. We've seen enough of this taking place in our government on the U.S. level and the state level. It's very unproductive. It's time to get to work. Seriously, it's time to get to work. Anybody that knows me know I'm very no nonsense. I believe in engaging with the people, regardless of your religion, your background, your religion, your sex. I've done this for most of my life. I'm not as young as you think I am, but it's just time to get to work. I believe in working hard. I believe in asking questions and getting down to the bottom line of things. That's what I plan to do. That is what I currently do. How you can help hold me accountable, you send me emails. You invite me out to your community. I will be there. You shoot me an email about the successes of your child, your neighbor. It's a two-way street. That's what communication is all about. That's why it's CO. Send me an email. You can also have engage me by calling my phone. I will have set up creative methods and ways where I'm meeting with you on a regular basis. Town hall meetings. May not be monthly, maybe quarterly. But I really have a lot of great plans in store. I don't just accept positions and not do the job. I give 110%. I have a track record that proves it. Feel free to stay behind later after this Q&A, and I will be able to share more information with you about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Ms. Potts is absolutely correct. The finger pointing from the federal level and the state level, but I'm going to add one more, even on the local level. Just look at what just happened with our maintenance issues over the last couple months. And everyone is just pointing the finger at each other, okay? Now, I don't know exactly what happened, who dropped the ball, whose fault it was, but what I had planned to do is to start working on day one to fix these issues, to bring transparency of what is going on in the school board to everyone, okay? That is not just in Matoaca, but for the entire county. Because yes, I will be the Matoaca representative, but it's also for the entire county. And that's what we need to do. As far as how you hold me accountable, very simple. 4 years, you go to the election. If I don't try If I don't hold up with what I say I'm going to do, and I'm not going to ever promise to fix every problem, but I'm going to tell you that I promise to give it 110%. And I promise that I'm going to continue to keep trying to make progress.
Thank you. The next question is for the Board of Supervisors. Why won't meal taxes work in Chesterfield County? Neighboring counties are thriving and flushed with cash to properly plan and implement the communities in our area. Yet, we are always short. What needs to change, and how will you change it?
There are 102,000 people in Chesterfield County that leave here every day to go work somewhere else. There's about 70,000 people that come into Chesterfield to work, and there's about 49,000 people that work within our community. So you can pass a meals tax, and I'm not in favor of it, but it doesn't matter what Kevin Carroll thinks. What matters is what you think. If you want a meals tax, we'll put it out for a referendum and you can vote for it. And the last time they had it in 2013, it was overwhelmingly defeated in Chesterfield County. Only 4 precincts carried. In Henrico, they passed it, and there were 5 precincts that actually carried that in Henrico more so than anything else. We have a deficit here in workers. There are 190,000 jobs in Henrico County. There's 155,000 in Richmond. There's 137,000 here. Why do they do better than us? Because we go over there to work, we go over there to play, and we spend our money in Henrico and Richmond. So yeah, they're going to do much better on the meals tax. If you put a meals tax here, you're taxing yourself, you're going to tax you, you're going to tax everybody in this room every time you go out to get a dinner. And if you're okay with that, then vote for it. Put it on a referendum and vote for it. Doesn't matter what I think, it matters what you think. But I want to bring those 190,000 jobs in Henrico, I want to bring something here. That'll help us with the problems we have, bringing more jobs to Chesterfield County. Imagine if you didn't have to get on 288 northbound to go work in the West End in the morning because we created something out here, some type of office park where we can move your job here instead of having to commute in that traffic. We need to bring those jobs in Henrico and Richmond here. That'll help us with our tax base. It'll help us get a better corporate base to help pay for these expenditures that we have to do. But I would put it out for the people to make that decision.
I agree with Mr. Carroll. 2013, the mills tax was voted on, and surprisingly, only the village of Ettrick was in support of it. If that's something that the people, our neighbors, our citizens are interested in, solicit the feedback as a Board of Supervisor representative, I would definitely get the information, present to you the pros and the cons, but ultimately it should be the decision of our neighbors, our constituents.
For our school board candidates, we're going to move to school safety. The School Safety Task Force was established in 2017 with recommendations to be implemented. We were told through the budget, though the recommendations were great, none of them would be implemented at that time. What will you do to ensure that we have the budget to implement some of the recommendations to keep our children safe? What we currently have in place for the safety of the children and staff is simply not enough.
What I would do to ensure that we have a sufficient amount of money or adequate amount of money in the budget for school safety is to review our budget line by line. There are some areas on our budget that we do not need any allocation or less allocation. It may need to be eliminated from the budget. Some areas are just a little too top heavy. And we need to go through and review that budget line by line and ensure that our funding, your tax dollars, is being allocated in the appropriate place. And the appropriate places are where there is a need. I always put student safety first, is priority. That also includes our teachers. Our teachers are in the classrooms with our students. So when we say students, that's also encompasses our teachers. So when we're looking at our budget, there are some areas in which there were increases. Some of our contracted services. We really need to look at that and examine that very well and reallocate that to areas such as safety. So, in doing so, when, if or when I am elected as your school board candidate to represent Matoaca District, you can rest assured and be guaranteed that I will pay close attention and make decisions that are in your best interest, not wasteful spending. It's time out for that. There are too many needs. Building infrastructure is one, transportation. Pay increases for our teachers, full-time counselors in every school, and nurses. So this is what we're talking about when we're looking at our budget. Thank you.
I'll actually agree with Ms. Potts on this, because this is what needs to happen. We need to go ahead and take a look at our budget and rebalance it. We need to take a look at what we are spending things on. As a classroom teacher, okay, I've seen multiple things that have come down without really any input from teachers that cost a lot of money. When you trace the money back and find out how much the county paid for a particular program or switch something over, it'll make your stomach upset on some of these things. So it is important that we take a look at the budget and we free up some money, because I'll tell you something that is more important, okay, than switching from Google Classroom to Canvas, is making sure that we have adequate security at our schools. Most definitely I want to take a look at the budget, because safety of our children has to be number one before we, like I said, get a different program.
Thank you. And to the Board of Supervisors, same question. What will you do to ensure the budget to implement, what will you do to ensure we have the budget to implement some of the recommendations to keep our children safe? What we currently have for our safety of our children and staff is not enough.
So if you read the safety plan the study that was done, you will see that our schools are not where they should be. I did a perimeter check on this school earlier, one camera coming through the front door, no camera on the outside, no camera on the exits. So not only do we have to make sure that when we build new schools that they are properly funded and they have the right type of security systems, we need to bring that to the old schools. And it is about looking at the budget and making cuts where you can cut, because that's where you got to find the money. But if you can't find the money in the budget, not to fund the whole thing, because remember, we have a lot of schools in Chesapeake County, right? Then I would push the school board to put it in their CIP for the future, and to also make sure they get it as part of the new bond referendum that's going to come up in 2021. And we may be able to get the money, if the citizens, if you approve it for the bond referendum, we can get the money quicker, and we can start retrofitting these schools quicker. As a firearms instructor, I'm one of the guys that teaches the police officers to go in to save their kids if there's someone who's an active shooter. I just participated a couple months ago at Crestwood Elementary School. We did a mass casualty exercise with all the police officers and the firefighters. And, that's so we can keep on track of this. We got to keep our kids safe. I'm a big proponent of school resource officers. We have to have those officers in the schools. If someone comes through that door, we have an officer there to stop them. We save your kids. And so when I'm elected, I'm going to make sure that the chief of police has the money to make sure the school resource is funded. And the schools the elementary schools, part of that recommendation was for more school resource officers. But if we can't get them first, we'll get school security officers in here first and get camera systems that can be monitored all day long. Thank you.
As a parent, I have 3 boys myself. The last thing that you want to even think about is sending your children to school and then the unthinkable happens. Remember the good old days when you go to school, you just did that. You went to school, you learned, you played on the playground, you went home. But that's not the case anymore. Schools need to be approached more in a vibrant manner. And when we look at our funding, it does come, we have your local source, your state source, and then your federal source. But also when you're talking about funding, the General Assembly will oftentimes dictate unfunded mandates. And so as a board member, I definitely would try to advocate more, okay, we will take your mandates, but provide some funding. And so that is something to be considered. We want our children to be safe. We want our teachers to be safe. But one thing I can say, I'm a guardian ad litem with my law practice. And being able to come into a building as a professional, off the show is just my ID, and I can pretty much go anywhere. this day and age, with your opioid addictions and the things that are going on, you can't be so trustworthy. And we have to protect our children who are the most vulnerable. But once again, it goes with the planning, with the development. When we have these schools, that stuff should be at the core of the plans. We should make sure that security is key. Make sure that our children are safe and our teachers are safe. And make sure that we have persons, whether they're the security officers, use your watchdogs. Sometimes your solutions are within the school. And I've been involved in a lot of different churches who have different members and different organizations within their church who would welcome being a support system of the school. But that is definitely one area that I would definitely be an advocate for, making sure that our schools are secured properly.
When the new Old 100 Elementary School opened, on day one it was above capacity. Few people think that won't be the case when the new Magnolia Green School opens. What does the path forward look like to prevent that school from being overcrowded and thus continuing the trend towards reduced quality in our kids' classes?
So I think what kind of happened here is we had two communities that were growing at the same time, Magnolia Green and Harper's Mill. And we didn't forward plan